guys, in today's video I'll show you when and how to use the sole roll and when not to use it. Let's go. When we are talking about the sole roll, I've always been told by my coaches not to do it. But I think there's some really big benefits to do it, and maybe you notice too that big clubs like Brighton and Manchester City are very good and very deliberately using sole rolls when building out from the back and in situations where they want to stay in position for longer. One of my favorite things about using the sole roll is that it's very helpful in situations where you want to attract opponent players, especially if they're very structured and your team is in position and you want to find an open teammate. So it can basically look like you standing a little bit like this, just being in control of the ball, dragging it around until the moment where someone from the opponent team jumps out of the formation, which is what you want. And as soon as that happens, you create kind of an overload because you can go to the side and find a teammate very fast. If you take a look around, you can see we're actually on a small pitch today, and that's kind of in the spirit of the sole roll because it derived from these like small-sided games, or especially futsal. And that brings me to the next great thing about the sole roll is that you're very much in control compared to taking a bad first touch, for example, or just a bad touch in general. But when you are in the position like this with your foot sole on the ball, you are in control of the ball all the time and you won't lose it. The third thing I want to tell you guys today about the sole roll and when it can be beneficial is that you can use it to remove pressing cues from the opposing team. Meaning that if they're maybe high pressing or maybe they're very well structured, they will have distinct pressing cues and they will try to press you and your teammates to play the ball specific places. But it's very hard to read you when you use the sole of the foot, and you can remove some of the pressing cues. A pressing cue could, for example, be I receive the ball here and I take a touch this way. A person pressing me would know they can close this lane off if they go this way. But if I instead receive the ball here and I stop the ball, they might have to stop their speed because they don't know, they can't see in my body which direction I'm gonna go. So they have to slow down the speed to be aware and to be ready to change direction. Because I could receive it like this, take a touch here and then go the other way and they would run out the pitch. As I mentioned earlier, I've always had coaches who were very keen on me making first touches. They were directional and very intentional, and while that is the case and should be the case 90% of the times, I think what makes you a great player is knowing when to do that and when not to do it. And when not to do it is where the sole roll can come in handy, because instead of closing off your options like this with a first touch, I can play the rest of my teammates over here. When you use the sole roll to maybe just stop the ball, scan the field, you have so many more options and you're actually open to see what is available to play and what is the best pass. And it might be the pass over here anyway, but it might also be you should have gone this way to begin with. Now, let's talk about some of the things you need to be aware of if you want to use the sole roll. And the first thing is that it can really slow down the speed of the game. And while this can be good if it's done deliberately, you need to be aware that you're not just standing still on the ball because you didn't prepare well enough when receiving it. So make sure if you're using it to slow down the game, it's deliberate and not just because you didn't have time to find an option before. And when we're talking of things to be aware of, you need to be very aware of the risk you're taking and where on the pitch you're doing it. Because if you use the sole roll, but you're not prepared, or you take out the speed of the game and someone is pressing you very intensely, you can end up closing all your options so you don't have any teammates to play. And the risk of losing the ball can be very high. And if my goal is behind me here and I lose the ball like this to a pressing player, this is the worst situation you can imagine, especially if you're a defensive midfielder or center back, because I have to turn 180. The opponent player is already sprinting full speed towards the goal, and that's not a situation we want to be in. A third thing to be aware of when using the sole roll is the distance from you and to the player pressing you. I find it most effective to use the sole roll when there's not too big and not too short of a difference, but kind of in between, and when you can read the body language of your opponent player and see what kind of pressure they want to do to you, because then you can kind of do a little fake. So maybe someone is pressing me from this angle, I can go here and then move out this way and find an option to play one of my teammates. A last and very important point is that when you use the soul roll, don't take too many touches. I know it might feel like you have extra time and you can stand on the ball and move around and feel like you're controlling everything, but in reality, it just traps down the pitch and it closes off options for your teammates. So use it deliberately to find openings and don't just stand warming the ball with the sole of your feet. Now you hopefully know a lot about the things to be aware of when using the soul roll, so I would like to show you some of the variations that I like to use in games. The first one is the V-drag. It looks something like this. I receive the ball, take a touch one direction, drag the ball the other way. The thing you have to be aware of when doing this is for it to be useful, is that you have to make it convincing that you are going this way. So you have to use your body language to show this is where you want to go, but in reality you're going this way when you drag it back and do this. The specifics of it is basically that you are turning a specific way, you have your foot on the ball, put your weight on it while you jump and turn the other leg. So it looks like this while you drag it, and then you hit it with the inside of your foot. Another variation that I really like to use personally is the L-drag, and I've actually already shown it in another of the Unisport videos. It looks like this. Or maybe perhaps like this, if you take a touch and you're faking to go this way, you can just quickly go the other way. The specifics of it is that you're again faking one direction and then you just roll the ball and hit it with the inside of your sole, turn and go the other way. The reason I like this variation so much is that it helps me to get out of situations of high pressure, or maybe if you've taken a bad first touch like this and you see there's no options over here, it's a very quick way to switch the play to the other side and the opponent won't read you when you do it. Now I want to show you two other variations that I like to call escape. And it's basically where you use the sole of your foot to escape a very tricky situation, or maybe you're under high pressure. This could look like I have the ball here, someone's pressing me, I'm going this direction, I need to protect the ball and I would preferably also go the other way. So I basically just jump like this and get away from it. And there is a variation inside this variation, because you can do it, as I just did, with this foot. So you do like a big turn, but you can also do it with the leg or the foot that's further away. So it's basically more of a feint for the other person, and you go this way. Now I'll show you some of the ways you can practice or train the soul roll. Maybe you're not comfortable with it yet, so it's very important to have a good technical foundation. That's why in the beginning I would say just like play around with it, you know, like the simple thing. This is maybe level 1, and then you just start like moving around. See, I almost fell. So like get comfortable with using the sole if you're not used to it. After you feel like you're comfortable doing that, you can start doing variations of like ball mastery drills with the V-drag. It can look like this. Start out slow until you feel like you have control over the ball, and then you can add the tempo and the pace. And when you are comfortable with this, you can start to look up. As in a game, you would have to look at the pitch while you're doing this. Once you feel like you've got the movements under control, but you want to train it in a more game-realistic way, you can start doing some of these drills. The first one is where we use this bouncer to take a first touch one way and then do the V-drag to another way. And you can basically just stand here with yourself, play around a little with the speeds. You can also take some extra touches and then go back, but basically just using the bouncer to train whatever skill you want to train. So basically, as long as you have a bouncer, you can train and practice every variation. We show some of the others. It's like this, turn around, or like turn around. That's one of the ways I like to train this, and the important thing is that you do make it game realistic, so when you do the movements, you do them 100% like someone's at your back. That's all for today. I hope you learned when to and when not to use the sole roll, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe.